Dr. Keating, thank you so much for being with us again, Lisa.
My pleasure.
And we're focused on how the changes of how people learn because of COVID. Like, what was my problem? Why couldn't I remember the passcode was that simple, Lisa?
Well, I wanted to start there with a recap from what we were talking about last week, which is piggybacking off what Grant was talking with people about. And it's because stressed brains don't work very well. I mean, quite simply. And that's what students, I mean, really what we're talking about here is how do we help students? And I think librarians are in a very, very good place to be helping students. I think to some degree, librarians and therapists are in the same role. Students are surrounded right now with distracted parents and teachers who are struggling themselves and who are trying to do the impossible. And librarians and therapists are in the role of being calm and present, giving one-on-one help, being focused on just what the student needs and trying to help them. And I think this is just invaluable to students right now. And I think librarians in this, upside down learning environment, I think librarians have no idea how much they are helping students right now in a lot more ways than reference and learning guides. I think, people just aren't getting what they need from each other right now, and just really being there and being focused in on what a student needs and just being just the two of you, and you're just focused on them and you are present and you want to know what they want, what they need, and you're focused on how you can help them. I think the information you give them is invaluable, but I think just that presence alone is invaluable as well. And so again, I think you have no idea how much you are helping students right now. So keeping that in mind, I want to just do a very quick recap of last week, where we are starting from a foundation of understanding what students are going through right now. We know that COVID, the impacts of COVID are just continuing to grow as time goes on. And we're seeing just this growing amount of children and teens who are experiencing anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, and loneliness. Again, a recap, 2 weeks ago, the CDC came out and told us young adults are the highest risk category of all ages right now. 62% reporting symptoms of anxiety and depression. 25% saying they have experienced thoughts of suicide in the last 30 days, and 25% saying they have either started or increased substance use in the last 30 days. Now the CDC came out just a couple days ago that 1 in 6 of our students are now experiencing food insecurity. So not to be, starting off on a very depressing foot, but it is where we're at. And, the presence of food insecurity I think is just going to grow and grow. And again, it just goes back to stressed brains don't work well and hungry brains don't work well. So how do we help in the midst of all of that? And some of it is coming from a place of empathy and understanding of what people are going through. So I'm sorry, Sue Lynn, I know I'm jumping around here a bit, but I do want to go back to the acting out and acting in slide, where if we remember that stressed and hungry brains don't think well, they don't work well, and we rest on a foundation of understanding that kids show us how they feel, rather than tell us how they feel. And if we go back to those acting out behaviors that we see in libraries and we see online, and we know when kids are acting out, yelling, slamming things down, refusing to work, putting their head down, not listening, tapping stuff, being disruptive. They might be disrespectful to us or talking back or smart language. And those are acting out behaviors. What do they tell us? They tell us that the student in front of us is frustrated. They're angry. They're overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. And they're angry. And then we have acting in behaviors. And that's, changes you're not going to see in appetite and sleeping. They're having problems with friends. They might be crying with you. They might be distracted and unfocused. They might seem sad. And what does that tell us? That tells us that the student, again, is feeling overwhelmed. They're sad. They're anxious. Again, they might be hungry. They might not be sleeping well. They're feeling hopeless and they're feeling helpless. And so how do we help these students? And some of what therapists and librarians can do, again, is just be this calm, focused presence who is helping them from an understanding and compassionate place. So we are going to then transition here into thinking about how do we interact with them. And sorry, Sue Lynn, I know I'm jumping. Yeah, okay. So what we need to be thinking about is that students need more from us than they used to. They need more hand-holding, reassurance. They need us handing them more things than they used to overall. I see that in my therapy practice as well. People are saying, tell me what to do, or what should I do, at levels that they didn't before. And I think a general rule of thumb here for you guys is just knowing that people aren't doing as well as they seem like they are, and they need more overall than they used to. So in your libraries, though, they might be acting in ways that are frustrating. And when we come from a non-judgmental place, it tends to go better. And that can sometimes be hard with children and teenagers, particularly if they're being distracted, if they're being disrespectful. And again, a good way to handle this is when we ourselves are taking good care of ourselves psychologically, so that we are grounded, so that we don't get set off by their acting out and acting in behaviors. And when we're taking good care of ourselves and we're practicing grounded skills where we're taking deep breaths and we're saying things to ourselves about acting out and acting in behaviors, we come from a non-judgmental, grounded place. It's better for us and it's better for them. So in other words, an ungrounded place would be that, Susie is got her head down on the desk, she's tapping, and she's like, what? When we're trying to help her, we've all seen this before. And, one way to think of it would be in our mind saying, she is so annoying. I refuse to be talked to like this. I hate middle schoolers. And let's face it, we're human, right? We have these reactions sometimes. But if we can come from a more grounded, non-judgmental place where we're interpreting where she's at from her acting out and acting in behaviors, and we can say, She seems really overwhelmed. She's unfocused. And I think she just doesn't even know where to begin. Then we can come from a more compassionate, open-minded place where we can realize she's trying to tell us more specifically what she needs. So a very good place to start with any age student is with validation. And it tends to just keep them more engaged with you. And when people feel seen and understood, they stay more open to us. So what would validation mean for students right now? And right now, what students need, no matter what age they are, is validation about how hard it is to be a student right now. If they don't think you get that, I think you're going to have a hard time getting them to engage with you. Whereas I find that I'm getting a lot more referrals for kids and teenagers who are feeling depressed, anxious, and a lot more OCD right now. And I find that if within about the first 15 minutes, I start with validation, and I typically say something like, a lot of people don't know this, but this is very hardest on teenagers. A lot of people think it's older people, but it's actually not. This COVID and quarantine and having to learn in all these different ways you guys have never learned before, this COVID and the new learning that COVID is causing is the very hardest on teenagers and young adults. So no matter what you are experiencing right now, I'm telling you that I am hearing this from a lot of people your age. And so just know this is really common, and I can help you with some stuff. And just really, people do not understand how hard this is on your age group. And I find that if I say that right off the bat, that this invisible wall that was there just kind of comes down, and I can see the young person I'm working with just kind of relax and start to take me in ways that they kind of had their invisible wall or their invisible dukes up when we first started. So starting with validation is huge. Now, how we do that is a little bit different based on developmental age. So we talked last week about 3 or 4 age groups, and I want to just break that down again, starting with kindergarten through 5th or 6th, depending on how middle school is done in your community. So validation for this group might be, I bet it is so hard to go to school like this. What is it like for you? So that would be a good validating statement. So we know in this age group that they rely much more on both verbal and visual presentation. So I, even believe it or not, because I'm doing telehealth, I'll try and draw things and kind of show it on a piece of paper to them if I can draw anything if they're not reading yet, or if I can just write down the main words I'm wanting them to remember. So if there's any way you can write things down, draw things for them, sticky notes, anything visual and verbal, and they need things repeated 2 to 3 times, whatever you're trying to tell them that's important. Again, writing it down, drawing it for them, and saying it 2 or 3 times. Kindergarten through 3rd, teachers are reporting right now increases in distraction and frustration. Remember, this is in a typical school day. They have kids this age moving around a lot, working with manipulatives. And so now with hybrid models or online learning, they're supposed to just sit there. It's not working well. So anything you can do to give them a manipulative, or to know that if they're getting up and moving around or standing and shifting their feet, it's because they need to be moving. There's not a lot we can do about that in this situation, but just know that's what's going on, is they need to be moving a lot more than they are. So if they're standing up, let them stand up. If they're shifting their weight or if they're moving their hands, it's okay. I saw in the Las Vegas district that they were actually giving out stress balls in some boxes. That's so cool because that's really good. That helps them focus at all age groups, but particularly with these younger students. 3rd through 6th, lots of verbalizations right now about, I hate school, or this is so hard. And anything we can do to say, it really is, this is so hard on you guys. So let me try to help you figure this out because I know how hard it is. And in this age group, remember, anything you can do hands-on. So I know this is so hard. Let me help you. I know normally you wouldn't need this amount of help, but right now, just let me walk you over and show you. It's over here, and pull it down for them. So hands-on support in this younger group. They need so much positive as well, but it has to be genuine. So anything you can find to give them positive feedback about that is genuine. They need a lot of positives right now. Jumping ahead to middle schoolers. Middle school, a good validating statement to start with is school's already hard enough in middle school. I mean, we all remember middle school, right? There's such a jump to independent learning, and then all the social stuff that's going on. This is a really hard time socially and educationally. And so if we start from this genuine place of remembering middle school and just saying, oh my gosh, I remember middle school, it's already hard enough. And now you guys are trying to do this in this, quarantine and COVID. I bet this is way harder than most adults have any idea, huh? And then, just listen and see what they say. Know that this is a time where there is a big jump in critical thinking skills, and that middle schoolers are looking for a sense of control and ownership over their lives, right when they don't really know how to do it yet, but they think they do. So how do we help them? And, this is a little bit of treading on water here. So what we want to do is to elicit their problem-solving skills, but without overwhelming them, knowing that they need more help than they typically do at this developmental age. So there's different ways we might do that, such as comments like, what are you thinking about how you're going to approach this? Okay, that's great. I have some ideas that could help too. So in other words, we're letting them have ownership and control, but we're also offering a helping hand. Another thing is, I see what you're thinking. I love this idea. I might have some other information to help you round it out. So you're letting them know you can see they've got this, but you can help in any way they need. So then we're moving on here to high school. So again, validating with high school students, with teenagers, I find they appreciate it so much. And I'm just finding, again, I want to just say it again, that scientists are showing that this is hardest on you teenagers right now, harder than any other age group. And so many teenagers are telling me how hard this is. How is it for you? And what can I do to help you? That's a really good place to start with them. Developmentally, teenagers, again, social emotional learning is huge. They are beginning to develop very practical skills like planning out tasks, working deadlines. This is a time developmentally where they're resistant to adult guidance, but still need it. So again, walking on, treading on water here a little bit. They need a lot of confidence, you showing confidence in their work. They need their strengths observed. So for instance, trying to interact with a teenager, a high schooler, you might say things like, it seems like you know what you're doing. if you are open to any other ideas, I think I might have some information that would support where you're going here with this. Would you like to see it, or do you feel like you want to just stick with what you have? Praise would be, I really like the subject you chose. I think that's going to be interesting to a lot of people. I think I have some information over here if you want to add it in. Again, it's got to be genuine. You seem to be really good at thinking outside the box. Again, I think I have some other information if you want any. It seems like you have a really good idea going. You just haven't quite figured out yet how to write about it. Why don't you think about, I see you gathered this information here. Why don't you think about starting here with something like this? So again, you're showing confidence in their work, but you're helping them and supporting them in their idea. The final age group that we talked about last week was young adults. And originally I hadn't thought about throwing in this age group until I saw the information from the CDC. And we now know that this is an age group that needs our attention more than ever. So again, starting with the validating statement of a lot of people don't know this, but young adults 18 to 24 are the very most affected by this quarantine. And a lot of people your age are experiencing depression and anxiety. And so however you're feeling and doing, just know that a lot of people your age are really struggling. What can I do to help you? And so developmentally, young adults are on the bridge. They're walking from being a teenager over into adulthood, and they're trying to find their way. That's the theme of young adulthood, trying to find their way. And so they are trying to find their way right now in a very shaky world with shaky adults, shaky job market. If they're in any type of training or college, they don't even know if, it's going to stay open, if their dorm's going to stay open, if they're going to be going back home. I mean, just think of what they're going through right now, and they're trying to learn in the midst of all of this. And so they're just really on such shaky ground. So, but they want to be adults. They want to be independent. So how can we focus on helping them with what they're looking for? And I think that's the place to start with young adults is tell me what you are looking for and how I can help you. Focus on being really helpful and warm in supporting their idea and in what they are looking for. So you can see the themes are the same with all these different age groups, but how we talk to them is really different. So just as a wrap up here, again, as librarians, I think librarians and therapists right now are doing the same work. And that is just being a grounded, calm, one-on-one presence that's focused on the person in front of us. And we're just trying to be really present. We're validating them. We're doing as many positives and reassurances as we can, but only when it's genuine. No one can sniff out ungenuine stuff like a teenager. Okay, so it's got to be genuine. And we're trying to help them in what they want and what they need. And people just aren't getting a lot of that right now. And so just really feel very good about what you are doing for the world right now. Okay, I'm going to stop there.
Wow, that really was fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Keating. Does anybody have any questions? I'm looking at the chat. If you have questions or if anybody wants to jump in, it's all yours. One of the things
I'm curious, are people who are working with children and teenagers seeing an increase in acting out and acting in behaviors, either, you know, over the phone or in your library settings? Or are you starting to see this at all?
I was wondering the same thing too, and I see Ron Belbin is on the call from Western Nevada College. Ron, how are things going so far?
Well, good morning all. We have gone through a week of quite a bit of anticipated trauma with the changes and the expectations. Everybody came back to campus, I think, with perhaps a perception that it was going to be returning to life as normal. And clearly that has not happened. And so we have spent a lot of time doing exactly as we've just heard, talking to our students, explaining to them that these changes have been made for their safety, and just trying to listen to them. We haven't really gotten anywhere close to dealing with academic content. We've been talking about their experience. We've been talking about their reactions. We've been guiding them through the new processes. And I think that element of being genuine and listening and hearing each of their stories, although many of the stories are very similar, hearing them all individually has been very important to our students. So we haven't got into the academics. We've just been dealing with the circumstances at the moment and the challenges, and that's the way we've been moving.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Ron, when you are the students are coming into the library and you're having kind of one-on-one conversations with them 6 feet apart, is that what it's looking like?
Yes, we're all wearing masks. We're maintaining that 6 foot distance, and one of the things that we've struggled with is we spent the last 3 years building up an environment in which close collaboration has been the essence of our library. People coming in, clustering around whiteboards, working around computers. And so for all of us, that has actually been, it's provoked feelings of grief. We have lost that environment. What we spent so much time and energy building is no longer possible. So our staff has had to deal with that, as well as our students. So we're doing the 6 foot social distancing thing, where everybody comes in, they have to follow the similar guidelines as happening in all other libraries. They have to work at a computer separate from everybody else. They work in study rooms. They're not allowed to share study rooms. And so we're dealing with those stages of grief as we're going forward.
So I have a question for you too, Ron. Has your team thought about ways to convene conversations similar to what we're all doing right here, kind of to help us bridge the feeling of being together apart? I don't know, Dr. Keating, what you think about how effective this is, but one of the things I wonder is about the possibility of creating one-to-one video reference services and those kinds of things, or study groups. Over the summer, I was involved with the College of Southern Nevada and the cohort of individuals who went through the dialysis program. And I did convene study sessions every Tuesday at 5:30 with the group, and was able to do some of the things that Dr. Keating was talking about, but not as great as I would like to. So as I think about how we reach our students, I don't know what you guys are talking about, Ron, as far as that goes.
Well, that is one element that we haven't been able to set up yet. And I think it's something that I'm going to follow up on. One of the reasons that that has not happened is we've just been overwhelmed with the fluidity of the situation that we're in. So to be honest, while I'm I'm struggling with our situation. I'm grateful we've gotten as far as we have. I'm grateful that we have a system and a service that we're able to provide. I have spoken with all of our academic coaches, and again, I've encouraged them when they deal with students online, because all of our academic coaching is being provided online, is don't jump into the academics, but go through those kind of conversations. Talk to the students about their circumstances, about the way that they're dealing. But the idea, I think, of having a regular session or multiple sessions over the course of the week, where people can connect with me or one of my staff, and simply know that that is what's going to happen, that those are the kind of conversations we will have. And I'm sure our counseling department is doing the same thing. So it sounds like a very, very good idea.
I was thinking, you know, so much of this is thinking outside the box and trying to figure out how do we do this? And we got a letter from my 8th grader's principal, and she was saying, you know, they're trying to let them go outside to take their masks off and stay apart. But she said developmentally, middle school, they just want to glomp like this. Mm-hmm. And so they just have to keep. And so what they did was they put their desks in a circle in the classroom, and they're all as far apart as they can possibly be. I don't know if there's a way to do this in a library, but that really seemed to help them. So just reconfiguring the desks where they could look at each other seemed to really help. So a lot of this is trial and error, you know, and like I said, thinking outside the box, uncharted territory. Right. But I think, Ron, what you're saying is it's, you know, what kids and teens need is they're just craving that, you know, collaboration and seeing each other and working together. And so we're all just trying to figure out how do we meet those needs within libraries and schools.
Ironically, and maybe not so, but the group that most misses the ability to collaborate is our nursing program. That's a group who are working a very stressful program anyway, and they spend a lot of time working together. I mean, hours upon hours working together in our study rooms, and we're you know, it is so difficult, even though they are you know, going into that field and they're familiar with the consequences of this disease. They find that they're really struggling to work in this new environment, and it's hard to see. I mean, it breaks my heart. It really does.
I think even just what you were saying, Ron, just realizing this is the developmental age that's being the most impacted, and I think the more we just validate their experience and listen, like you said, goes a long way. But I mean, if you also think about the culture of nursing, these are people who have signed up for a career working with other people, helping other people. And in hospitals, there's a culture of nurses where it's a very close-knit social circle. So it doesn't surprise me that it's affecting them so much. It's kind of what they yearn for.
So, Dr. Keating and Ron, if there was something to test, and Ron, I'd be more than happy to help test something, whatever it might be. But if there was something to test with, just say this particular cohort, the nursing students, to try to foster some kind of connection that has two goals, I guess. One is to just let them know that the library and librarians are there for them in their journey, because this isn't going to last forever. But then also, you know, the lure into that might be some kind of practical skill building, or, I mean, I don't know. You can ask my team. I always say this, I'm just making this up. I'm brainstorming right now. I don't know what this is going to lead to, but what I'm thinking about right now is just even getting started with something simple. Again, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but what if we were trying to, in the nursing program, where they're trying to learn about placing a fistula, which I actually learned what that is. You know, it's a big darn deal, and creating a port into your body for all kinds of chemistry. And so what if we were able to kind of figure out what it was that they were kind of working on right then, you know, because they're feeling pressure too of having to learn something, whatever it is. The train has left the station. Their program of study is on a course. They're going to have a quiz on something at some point in the near future. I don't know if there'd be a way for us to try to figure out how to create some kind of study circle on Zoom. I don't know, just to see what the feedback might be, and if it was at all helpful to their week or to their month. I don't know. I mean, you know, October will be here before we know it. So what if we spent the next couple of weeks trying to figure something out? Something's better than nothing. We give it a go in October, and maybe we could share it back out with everybody here after that period of time. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. The other thing I keep thinking about is you know, the reading efforts that all of the public libraries have advanced over the summer, and all of the achievement. I mean, you know, it wasn't as robust as in a non-COVID situation, but the number of Nevadans, young people who did participate in reading programs over the summer, it's nothing to sneeze at. So there was engagement. And so how we keep that going is still a question mark. Spoiler alert, everybody, as I said earlier, that press conference isn't going to be this week. It'll be sometime next week. But as I've been talking with my team, just about, again, I don't know what this looks like, but if I was a kid, if I was a family, and I was involved in some kind of fall reading program with my library, I might like to know that there would be a chance. Again, I'm making all this up, you know, Friday nights at 7 p.m. we gather around this metaphorical reading circle or whatever. But if let's just say, now I'm picking on Todd because he's sitting right there. He's the library director of the Carson City Library. And Lisa, I'm picking on her, Dr. Keating, because she is one of Dr. Colgrove's patrons. They both live in Carson City. So if Dr. Keating and her family wanted to enjoy an opportunity to connect with their library on a Friday evening, because the librarian was going to ask the 7th grader in Dr. Keating's family, hey, what are you reading right now? I just want to know what you're reading. Tell me what you're reading. Tell me what you did. I don't know. I don't know if any of that would count for making some kind of a connection, but I've really been listening to everything you've been saying, Dr. Keating, and I don't know, how do we bridge connection?
Well, I mean, I think some of it, I mean, I'm not an expert on how libraries are set up, but I do wonder, particularly for younger patrons, students, you know, I don't, just kind of piggybacking off this idea of what they did in the middle school that really was helpful. I wonder, you know, about your sitting structures and making them so they can't move close to each other. I don't know how that's done, but, you know, are there kind of glomps of chairs where people, like students, can at least see each other? And but, you know, again, you have to kind of not be able to move the chair because you don't want them, you know, but can they be sitting and at least aware, you know, experience someone else's presence physically, looking at each other, seeing each other? And then I don't know. I just don't know. I'm sorry. Like, what, I think any kind of Zoom chat groups where people can physically see each other like this, I think are really good. And could you start middle school and maybe you already have this middle school reading club, or, where everyone's zooming in. They can either be in the library or they're zoomed in on a TV, and they're all reading the same book, or I don't know, but just they're craving that physicality.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions or thoughts? I see Marcy's nodding her head. Marcy's got a young one also, and probably trying to struggle through school. Is she in school right now, Marcy?
She doesn't start kindergarten until next year.
Next year, okay.
Yeah, she
Right.
preschool last year, so she's not doing anything right now. So that's been a little bit of a struggle too, because and I see it mostly, on the weekends, especially this past weekend where we had a long weekend. She understands the structure when we, go to work and she goes to her grandma's house, and then we get back into a weekend, and I think she thinks we're falling back into when we were home all the time, because she does her just behavior shifts, her attitude shifts, and there's a lot of having to work through because she just kind of falls into this, we're always at home, there's nothing nothing exciting going on. So yeah, some of this has been really helpful for me to utilize with her, and trying to validate those feelings and talk to her so that she gets that I understand, and in the limited ways that she can share with me, she can still share with me what it is that's frustrating her, and and how difficult it is to be at home so much. I'm really looking forward to the weather getting nicer, so we can get out and walk and go to the have a picnic at the park, or do some different things that way too. I think that will be helpful for her. But yeah, it's definitely a struggle, and I as much as we even have those feelings and try to wrestle with them, I feel for her and the inability that she has to process some of that. So I'm thankful for this, Dr. Keating, so that I can help her kind of walk through it and talk through it, so that she can process it and feel understood, in the hopes that that will help her move forward from it too.
I think before this, there's been such a focus on like social emotional learning in a lot of schools, and it's just so important. But I think right now kids are really showing us how they feel, and to, again, for adults to do what you just said, see the changes in behavior as communication, not something that needs to be corrected, but communication, and letting them talk and feel heard. And again, I think that librarians, what you were saying, Ronald, about just listening, to students, I think it's huge. I just don't think most students are getting a lot of that, because adults are stressed too. So again, I just think librarians and therapists right now are doing God's work. So keep it up, because I think you are doing a service that really just, a lot of people, you are helping them more than you have any idea.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else have anything? Oh, I see Todd. Yeah.
I thank you. I did have one question, just in terms of communicating that role. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around, I'm pretty sure you said something, Lisa, that suicide ideation among teens today is around 25%, 1 out of 4?
So yeah, the CDC came out 2 weeks ago. Young adults, so 18 to 24-year-olds, their data just in, I don't know if you guys, I'm one of the people that they keep sending information, asking me different questions. So, they're doing research, with following different age groups. And so I seem to be one of they're asking me to fill out stuff every week. So they're doing their own research. And so they came out 2 weeks ago and said 18 to 24-year-olds. Yeah. So the young adult population, right? That's the bridge from being a teenager to an adult. And they are entering adulthood in all of this.
Wow.
And so, yes, 1 in 4 of the people they interviewed said in the last 30 days, they had had thoughts of suicide. I mean, that's incredible. I had to read that a couple of times. That's 1 in 4 young adults are having thoughts of suicide. They are having either starting or dramatically increasing substance use. But if you even think of just that number, 62% are reporting significant symptoms of depression and anxiety. 62%. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and when you add that to the numbers that I reported last time about the number of individuals who dropped out of NG schools when COVID hit, there was a third of students that dropped out right then. So, it sounds like the trends are continuing. And Ron, as you guys are interfacing with your career coaches, are there larger conversations about mental health?
I haven't been part of those, but I think, and again, I think it's because we've simply been dealing with the logistics of getting the campus up and running, moving classes that were up until last week in person, online, all of those logistics. And I think now, I know from my part, speaking absolutely personally, that I've really benefited from this 3-day long weekend because I've finally managed to stop and reflect. And one of the things that I certainly as part of this conversation and part of my reflection is that yes, we've gotten the bricks and mortar figuratively in place, and now we need to more closely focus on the people, and having those kind of conversations I think are going to be really important moving forward.
Yeah.
I wonder as well if there, and just adding into the mix that now this, CDC again on was either Saturday or Sunday, released that it was either 1 in 6 or 1 in 8 people have food insecurity right now. So, it's just tragic. And so I wonder if there is a way for each of you librarians to have some kind of sense of, if someone does say something to you, do you have resources at the ready for, this is where your food bank is, this is where the closest mental health clinic, or like a list of mental health referrals. And frankly, knowing that if someone is expressing suicidal thoughts or behaviors, I don't know if you will hear much of that, but if you do, a good rule of response is to send people to the emergency room. And then the emergency room knows where to send them from there. In some of the larger cities, Reno, Las Vegas, Carson City, we have walk-in mental health hospitals, but in smaller communities, sending them to the closest ER is always your first step if someone's suicidal, and they are trained to take it from there. But it might be good to have a sheet for, again, where can people get food? Where can people get mental health counseling? And where can they go if they're feeling suicidal? But hey, listen, I am going to have to sign off here in a minute or two, unless anyone has one last.
Thank you so much. We took you way past the check-in. Sorry.
I'm so impressed with all of you and questions and what you guys are doing. It's awesome.
Well, we will look forward to having our final call with you next Tuesday. So thank you so much. And I know next Tuesday we'll be talking about maybe putting ourselves into the shoes of teachers. What is it like to be a teacher? That will kind of bring everything full circle, I think, and also maybe a parent. But thank you so much, Dr. Keating, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Have a lovely week.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.